You're listening to Childcare Sights and Sounds, presented by Dani Christine Inc., a podcast made for childcare providers by childcare providers. Welcome back, everyone, to Childcare Sights and Sounds. I'm Dani.
I'm Gigi.
I hope that you all are doing well and have been enjoying the past few episodes. Just a little inside scoop, these episodes are all filmed way in advance, filmed and recorded. If you're listening versus watching, watch on youtube.com/Dani Christine and listen on all podcast streaming platforms by searching Childcare Sights and Sounds. Well, maybe not all, but your favorite ones: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. We filmed these episodes in advance, so I'm not 100% sure what episode number this is. I think it might be 6. Regardless, welcome.
Yes, welcome everyone.
Gigi is clearly trying to shoo someone out of her recording space. We're not in the secret sound yet. People can see you, you know.
I don't know what you're talking about. For those mothers out there who know that as soon as you get on your Zoom meeting, that's when all the kids want something. So I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. So I think that based on what we talked about earlier, Gigi, this episode should be titled something like "No Means No."
That has like a whole bunch of different meanings. No means no. Like,
yeah.
Are we talking to a toddler? Are we talking to an adult?
I guess both. Like, we can kind of maybe get into both and why it's important to be firm in saying no.
Yeah.
We recently, again, these episodes are recorded very much in advance, so by the time you're hearing this, hopefully we don't have this kind of issue anymore. But for those of you who don't know who we are, what we do, I definitely encourage you to listen back to episodes 1 and 2, where we review our relationship within my childcare business and, kind of our roles and stuff. But we together manage a staff of over 20 employees in a childcare center. And with that comes a lot of responsibility, of course, but also just stress and saying no a lot, or the need to say no.
Or knowing when to say no to.
Right. I guess that's a better explanation. Yeah. Knowing when to say no to our employees. Do you want to kick things off, Gigi?
No. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that is honestly a great example. If you, amongst our administrative team and even with our teachers, sometimes we might ask for like a volunteer for something or just to have something done. And if somebody is aware that they're not going to do the best job at something, I think it is okay to respectfully say no. Yeah. And, explain why. But I know you didn't mean that. You were just kidding, so go ahead.
Well, no. As a mom, I say it all the time, and I don't skip a beat. But for some reason at work, very hesitant to say no, in the sense of staff maybe retaliating by not showing up to work or calling out, or saying no in the sense they don't decide not to fulfill their job duties the proper way because they're angry because you said no. No is hard, and no needs to be said, especially administration, because I guess in the sense of showing structure, discipline, and respect. If it's yes all the time, before you know it, I feel like staff would start doing things on their own because they know we're gonna say no. Say yes anyway. So where's that authority figure? I guess I would say. Where's that structure of staff understanding that even if we say no, certain expectations still needs to be met. You still have duties to fulfill. So this is a difficult one. And then let's not forget those who think that they're buddy buddy with administration or bosses. So when you do say no, their feelings personally get hurt, not realizing that it's a professional decision.
Yeah. I do think that when it comes to decision making and delegating tasks and all of that, um, emotions and relationships do play a factor, but I kind of disagree with something that you said about how there has to be an authoritative figure, and sometimes you just have to say no just to because we can't say yes all the time. The only reason I agree with we can't say yes all the time is because literally I can't imagine that there is a childcare program where all requests are possible. My thing is that if a request falls in alignment with your policies, procedures, whatever your rules are within your business, if it falls in alignment with all of those things and you're able to say yes, and whatever you're asking for is available, whether it be like vacation time, purchasing supplies, or having a day off, whatever it is, that you should say yes. And if it happens to be that it's often because people are just understanding of your policies, then cool. But it is more so often, at least in our experiences, where people try to, whether it be children even, or staff or parents, try to ask for things that are not in your policies and they might know it. And those are the times that you have to say no and actually have to stick to saying no, when it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess for me it's not just say no just to say no, because I think that's unprofessional and almost like abusing your authority figure. Um, it's staff who have a fit because you said no and choosing not to understand your policy. So in a sense, you're like, okay, now, well, I need to affirm that no. Now, for sure, you're acting out, you're having a tantrum, you're fully aware of our policy, and now I have no choice but to stick to my no. And it makes it even, I'll be honest, it makes it even a little harder to say yes in the future because you had a complete meltdown because you got one no.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Speaking of, saying no just to say no, I think we can speak on an experience that I think you were there when we had our old assistant director, and she had told one of our lead teachers at the time to go cover a certain classroom.
Yes.
So sometimes in my program, and I'm sure in most programs, if you're short staffed in one class, you might pull from another class where pull a teacher from a different class where your ratio would be covered. And for those of you who don't know, the ratio is child to teacher ratio, how many kids can be in one class with one teacher. So some classes might require 2 teachers, some might require 3, depending on the number of kids in the room. So if we're out of ratio in one room, we would sometimes pull a teacher from a different class until we can figure out coverage. And in this example, this specific scenario, at the time, a couple of years ago, we had an assistant director who felt like she was not being respected, and she pulled a lead teacher out of her classroom to go cover a different classroom where she knew that teacher didn't really want to be, and that was the only reason she put her there, because she felt like she wasn't being respected, and she wanted to put that teacher where she didn't want to be. Yes, we needed coverage in that room, but the protocol would be to pull an assistant teacher or a floater. There was no need to pull a lead teacher. And I can definitely understand her frustration, like her.
whose frustration do you understand?
The assistant director. Like, I can understand her frustration, and we're going to get into how you felt that frustration as well just a couple days ago. Her frustration with being disrespected and not listened to, and just wanting somebody to listen because she had the quote unquote power. But that's not how we do things at my center.
And just quick mention, I was the one person who did listen to her and did never question her authority or whatever. I was the only one, but go ahead.
So that situation happened when I was not on site. I think it was early in the morning, and I was,
you were not there. Yeah.
I didn't come in until a little bit later in the morning at that time. So when I came in, and I think I was receiving text messages from the teacher,
phone calls, your phone was blowing up.
So I will say that in that situation, both people were wrong. Both the teacher and the assistant director, their reaction and responses didn't make any sense to me. We were out of ratio in one room. So yes, grab a teacher and put them in there, but it shouldn't be a lead. That was wrong. And the reason that you chose that lead, just because, and I'm not assuming, the assistant director told me this. I said, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you pick her and put her in there? And I think she said something along the lines of, I just wanted her to listen, or like,
it was in a line of that. I wanted her to respect me and do what like I asked her to do.
So I told her about herself. I let her know that was not right. However, the teacher...
Wait, sorry to cut you off, but tell the listeners what you did in the midst of that teacher contacting you, what you asked her to do.
I told her to do it.
You told her to listen to the assistant director and just do what you were told.
Right. That's what I was getting at.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Okay. Because that kind of changes the dynamics of the staff feeling some type of way towards you and how
I don't care. I told her that I didn't. So my thing is, when the teacher was reaching out to me, I don't know. At that time, I didn't know the rationale of, I wasn't there. So I didn't know what was going on in the center, why she was chosen to go cover a different classroom. I didn't know. And it wasn't an emergency, clearly, because my assistant director did not call me. So it wasn't like I was going to try to investigate and figure out. It's not an emergency. She was asking you to step into a classroom for however long, I don't know. Regardless, from what I understood in that moment, she asked you to do something. She's your supervisor. Do it. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't out of compliance. We weren't going to get a violation if you did it. She's asking you to do something, do it. So when I got there, I was like, okay, let's unpack this and figure out what happened. Why was this person so mad and all of that? So when I figured out that there were other teachers available that could have gone into that room, and the reason why this teacher and specifically was chosen was just out of emotions and frustration, that's when I was like, okay, this was wrong. However, I do think that the teacher was wrong in her response, like being, like refusing to do it and then going over her head to contact me when I'm not even there, just to be like, why did it's
to play both sides though. The teacher knew the policy and knew.
But let me say this:
she knew the assistant teacher was supposed to be pulled and not a lead teacher, and she was trying to inform the assistant director.
Let me tell you, there is no policy. We do not have a written policy that says lead teachers cannot be pulled. It's just that it was common sense. And
which is not common for everyone.
Right. But because when she reached out to me and said, whatever she said about why do I have to go, like, it was not something that was out of compliance or against a written policy. It was just not the norm. Sometimes we do things that are not the norm for one reason or another, as long as it's again, legal and in compliance and all of that. But just because this was unusual doesn't mean that she shouldn't have done it. So what I'm trying to get at is, if an administrator is telling you to do something, regardless of whether you know the reason or not, if you're not doing anything wrong as per law or licensing or regulations, then do it. But you can't have an immediate rebuttal. And if you have, like, if I was in that teacher's shoes, I definitely would not have been blowing up the owner of the program's phone asking, why do I have to be in this room? But I definitely would have made maybe I would have immediately been like, oh, hey, why do I have to go? And then if she still insisted, I would go because that's my boss. And then after, I would bring it to someone's attention. Like, hey, I didn't think this was right earlier. But don't make it seem like the school is burning down because you don't want to go into a specific classroom.
Of course it is burning down for that teacher at the time, because she was being told something she didn't want to do. For the first time ever, she can't have it her way. And it was a state of emergency. And then on top of that, she took it personally because you, who she felt she no longer felt that you should have sided with her, that it was that you justified the wrongdoing of the assistant director at the time, and she was personally hurt by it.
But what our staff does not know is that I did not justify it. I did have a stern talking to with the assistant director, and I told her that wasn't right and that wasn't necessary, and her reasoning wasn't necessary. It would have been a different kind of talk if she was like, oh, I walked into the room and this teacher was the first one I saw, so I asked her. Then it's like, okay, maybe like you don't understand how this goes, let me break it down. But the fact that she admitted that the only reason she did it was to have that sort of power or whatever, that was wrong.
Yeah, but and also the thing with that is, number one, and staff doesn't need to know and shouldn't know. And no. I agree, you shouldn't talk down or put your assistant director in place in front of staff, because that kind of downplayed their position to the staff. But staff did not know that you had spoken to the assistant director and corrected her and let her know what she's doing is not the right choice, especially being in a position that you're in. And then on top of that, I don't think it was spoken of afterwards. It came off to staff like it was just brushed under the rug. Like they felt like they deserve an explanation, which again wasn't the case, but that's just how it came off to them.
Well, nobody in that situation deserved an explanation. Mm-hmm. If anybody deserved an explanation, it was that one teacher. We shouldn't have needed to have a sit-down staff meeting with our 20 plus staff members to be like, this is why so-and-so did this and that. It was such a minuscule issue that escalated for no reason other than people not liking each other.
I think the issue is the tone that was set in general. So I don't know, is someone coming in as a new authority figure, how would we advise them to still be professional, but get staff to respect you, still be understandable, and let staff know, yes, once upon a time I was in your position, and even if you weren't in my position, I understand how you feel. How do you set the tone but still maintain that level of,
well, I think setting the tone like is that in itself. Like, don't come in trying to be everybody's best friend, because we've seen that too.
Yeah,
we have seen that backfire as well, and there is also a lack of respect there. The assistant director that came in at that time, I don't think that she necessarily came in on a power trip. I just think that she had a different style of management than I did. And I said it back then, and I'll say it again. I don't think that it's wrong to have a different style of management than I do, because I'm definitely more like soft-spoken, and absolutely, like when we first started, I definitely wasn't doing the best job to basically set a tone of like, I am your boss and that is what it is.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten much better at that over the years, but when this person was the assistant director, I think that's the kind of tone she came in on, which I think is rightfully so. It just was, it was disrespectful. There was some disrespect that once there was, on top of her already just being so stern and having the management style she had, when she did become disrespectful, even if it was just once or twice and I talked to her about it, there was already the whole staff was against her. So there was no turning back.
Yeah. So we say all of that to say this. No is yes necessary at times, but remember to uphold your policy, remember to be professional, remember to be respectful, and throw a dash of empathy here and there.
Yeah, I think that's important too. And I think that answers the question you had asked about how to, get your point across and I guess I forget your exact question, but not be a pushover, but also,
to how to come in with that.
Right. Being able to be confident in your decision of saying no, and also empathizing, like, hey, like for example, one of the recent issues we had with a staff member that wanted an extra day off of work, explaining, I'm sorry, we can't do that because we need you because X, Y, and Z. However, I understand your concern. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Like, I guess validating if they try to come back by explaining themselves again and again, or trying to be argumentative, shutting it down by saying, I definitely understand how you're feeling, but this is a business, and we need to run in this direction, if that makes sense. So not just saying no and leaving it at that, not saying no because I said so, but saying, no, I'm sorry, here's the reason. Even if you can't even if you can't say the reason in that moment, like for example, the situation with the director telling the teacher to go into the other room, if she felt like she was too busy and it was an emergency because they were out of ratio, can you please go over there? I'll explain later. Sorry.
You say that I remember you used to say that a lot, and I think it made it come off like, I need you to do what I'm asking to do, but I also understand what I'm asking to do is not something you're used to doing. It's like a quick explanation without really giving an explanation in that moment. Mm-hmm. Hey, do X, Y, and Z. I know you're not used to it, but I need you to do it right now. We'll talk about it later. And if it doesn't happen later, we can follow up the following day about what happened. Or at the end of the day, come to me and then we'll figure it out. That's needed a lot. It's almost like reinsurance.
Right.
I know some people would disagree and be like, no, I'm the boss. I tell you to do this and just do it. It needs to be explained. This I'm actually do it. But that's not how it should flow. It won't flow. You'll lose people behind that.
Right. I don't think that everything deserves an explanation, especially like a repeated explanation. Let's say you're asking someone to do something that they have done maybe a couple months ago, or if you're asking someone to do something and they're consistently being like, but why? I don't understand. Blah, blah, blah. Like, all of that isn't necessary either.
Like a constant struggle, like on purpose, like purposely.
Yeah, always. Like just being insubordinate, basically.
Just because.
Yeah, just because. I don't think that you should have to explain everything, but when you can, especially if it's something unusual, definitely when there is an appropriate time to do so, explanations could be necessary to savor the relationship between employer and employee. Do you want to talk about how you felt in this recent situation, or how I thought you felt and how I know you felt, but you don't want to admit it?
I have admitted lots of things to you. Trust me. I would not tell you how I felt about the situation. I think for me, I wasn't upset about the situation. I saw it as finally, yes, this is where we could begin to put our foot down, make administration structure and strong again, because we've had staff blatantly tell us they're not going to do something just because, and we're wrong. We probably let it happen for so long because we're constantly want to make staff happy. We're constantly trying to
Well,
figure out a way to make staff feel like they're valued or important, and the easiest way out is to just simply say yes, which is wrong. I'll agree, it's is wrong. But in the situation, I want, because
well,
this,
let me I'll explain the situation because we
okay,
didn't do that yet.
I could feel
Um,
like you did. You said
I briefly covered it,
um,
but I don't know if everybody listening
anybody
will
understood. Yeah.
connect the dots. So we recently had it. We're changing our schedules for a new season. We so often, every so often, we change our schedules, and in this particular instance, we surveyed our staff to see um, how many days off they would like to have. Or
Which,
I guess,
by the way, a lot of people would say that's nice of you.
well, yeah. So the reason that I surveyed is because we need to cut down on staffing. Like, and if we're going to cut down on staffing, we did have an original plan to just cut staffing, and then we figured out how to make it work and kind of see who maybe wanted to have reduced hours or be let go, or we could be forcing one staff member to do something that the other staff member would prefer. And again, based on availability, based on what makes sense for the company, if we can make both staff members happy by switching that, then it would make sense to do that, right? So I wanted to survey them to ask, how many days they would like to be working for this upcoming season. And there we in the survey and in the information leading up to it, I did, as always, explain that these requests of preferences are not guaranteed, and schedules are always subject to change based on availability and ratio requirements and all of that. Basically, letting them know that these are requests and not guaranteed just because you filled it out, right? So, of course, you're going to have those few handful of staff members. It's not everybody. I always tell Gigi to not speak in absolutes. We have a handful of staff members that might have issues with certain things whenever we make changes, because who likes change? It's just some staff take it as they should, as like, this is my job, it's a requirement, I'm getting advance notice, and this is what is expected. And then there's some staff that feel like they're entitled to get whatever they want just because they asked. So we had a staff member ask for a certain number of days, and we told her, I'm sorry, we can't do that. And she was upset. So a couple of days later, after we told her no, there was some back and forth between myself and Gigi, because she first went to Gigi about it, then came to me about it. And I basically told her, no, it can't happen.
And
And
I
I gave,
kind of to get my, when she came to me, I kind of left that window open or that door open
yes,
where I
and
said I
I
would
was
look into
annoyed
it.
by
And
that.
Gigi and Danny was not happy about that.
Yeah,
So
because I also don't believe in leading people on. Like, we already, amongst administration, we already said this is what it is multiple times. So for you to tell her you would look into it again, it's like, why? Why not just
for
end it right there?
for me, it's not leading on. For me, it's almost like, and I don't know if people process it the way that I do, is like, okay, we went over it. We said no. She's asking. I know we said no, but let's like double check and make sure. Let's leave that room where if we say yes, we left that room to say yes, but we're going back just to say no, just to make that person feel like, okay, yeah, they did try again and again and it's still no, then that's just what it is. I think that's my issue sometimes being in my position. I kind of want to leave that opportunity to change things, even though I should stick to whatever decision we make to begin with.
Right. So anyway, a couple days later, I forgot what I was doing, but I happened to look over the schedule and the surveys again.
You were about to X out and you was like, let me
Yeah.
glimpse through it.
And I realized that I could, based on a different staff member survey results, I could make the accommodation that the teacher that was upset requested, because there was another staff member who was willing to basically fill in the blank, the issue that was there. So I presented the new scenario to our administrative team, and immediately they were
Which, by the way, I feel like you kind of baited us. I feel like you made your decision.
I didn't say I need your help making a decision. If you remember, I said I'd like to know your opinion.
And so I'm like, if she knew what she was gonna do, why even ask? And which is so crazy, the rest of the staff was like, no, don't give it to her. Then you throw a curveball and explain your reasoning behind of doing it. And I'm just like, well, why did she even ask us our opinion?
Because I wanted to know your opinion. I presented my case. You guys are supposed to be leading a business that I built. You're supposed to have the mindset that I have to effectively lead the culture that we're creating. I want to know what you think about this scenario that I'm about to present, because I want to know if you're thinking like me, so that when these situations come up in the future, you're going to make the decision that I would make in my business as I'm handing my baby business to you. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to make that decision, that bothers me, So basically,
but I think it's a little different in decision making because we're on site every day. We hear and see some things where you may not see it, in a sense where we may understand it in one perspective and you may understand it in a different perspective. Because I don't think the reason why all three of us were saying no at first was because we hear the backlash, we hear the side comments, we feel the attitude, and it's almost like, okay, and that's why somebody else had said, we said no already, it's gonna make us look, X, Y, and Z, where you see it as policy, business, future.
So let me explain. And yes, I'm not on site every day, but I'm talking to all of you every day, all day, pretty much. So I might not be there to hear the backlash, but you guys definitely inform me. So I know what's going on in my business. But basically, for those wondering, what I presented to Gigi and the rest of our administrative team was the new.
Should we give it to her?
Yeah, the newfound scenario of like, okay, I was mistaken in telling this employee that there was no other choice, because there was no way that it could be solved, because that is what I originally thought. That's why I told her no, and told her that
don't forget to mention that before you even discovered that, this staff member is basically having a fit too, saying that they never get what they want and it's always the opposite. And
well, that's what she told you.
Yeah, why survey if we weren't going to fulfill the request of the survey, which is totally opposite, because this person does get what they want 90% of the time.
Yeah, well, regardless of that, I basically the intention of the survey was stated on the introduction of the survey, that this is just to see your preferences, to see if we can make accommodations, and if we can't, it is what it is, basically. So I'm thinking of it as like, so yes, I did present to the administrative team like, hey, this is the scenario that I am now in. I see that we are able to make this accommodation and two employees, even though the other one didn't have anything to say. She didn't even bring to my attention that, I asked for this many days and you gave me this many days. Whereas this employee, they could balance each other and the problem would be solved, right? So I presented that and I said, what do you think we should do? I asked that of Gigi and the rest of our administrative team, and they all were like, no, don't give it to her, blah, blah, blah. Gigi texted me. She was like, don't give it to her.
Because I wanted to at first, and then like I took it. So I took what you said, like, don't give her false hopes. And I'm like, okay, yeah, she's right. We do this all the time. We need to change our mindset when we're speaking to staff. And then the 2-3 days later, if even, while things are still fresh, she's gonna give it to her. And I'm just
like, yeah. So what I basically explained after I got those responses from my administrative team was that, like, so you guys are telling me that the only reason we should say no is because we said so, right? Let me try to see if I could read my response. Let's see if I can go back.
That wasn't my response. If you could look at, I so funny. I thought about looking it up. That my reasoning for telling her no is not because we said so. I feel like that was maybe the other two opinions. But I text you to the side, explaining why I feel like we should have said no. It almost goes back onto what we originally talked about. It's almost like we're back talking, we're backpedaling.
You said, when you text me on the side, you said, please do not change her days. If we keep giving staff what they want, they will never respect us. Now that we've explained the story from my old assistant director, does this not sound familiar?
Yeah, but see, the respect in a sense of the old assistant director was disrespectful from day one. Us, I think we were respectful, but we never really got it back in return from administrating staff. Like staff we weren't making staff doing this because we knew they didn't want to. We weren't doing that back and forth, I guess, quote unquote, pettiness.
Yeah, but that would be this situation. Us telling her.
I would disagree, but I'm not saying no just to say no. I'm saying no because we made a decision and we're trying our best to stick with every decision that we make.
Yeah, but
which we don't do all the time.
But we also just said together a few minutes ago on this podcast that sometimes we need to have reasons behind the decisions that we make, and sometimes they're worth explaining, right? So the only reason behind this decision, now that we know it could work out, would to keep her days the same would be spite. It would be because I said so, and just to hopefully get their respect. That would be the only reason, and that's not. So let me read what my response was. I said that in response to Gigi, I said that is how I feel, but not switching them is honestly just going to be a spiteful decision. That's something I'm struggling with because I don't like to operate the business out of spite or emotion. The reason I was so hard pressed about this staff member this morning, or whatever day this was because there was no other logical option. And I was annoyed that she was demanding something and acting like we were purposely not giving it to her. But now that I see there is another option that would solve the problem and actually satisfy two people, that's not my position anymore. And the only thing stopping the switch is our pride and the control factor.
What was the outcome? I know you said, is this staff member aware that they have this?
No, not yet, because she didn't, I couldn't call that day because of whatever conspiracy theory was happening with the phone lines. And then
which is true.
The next day, she didn't answer my call.
Which is a whole nother topic we should have on a different day when we try to reach out to our staff, purposely ignore us, or don't answer one and they answer the other one. But go ahead.
Again, I'm going to say that is a very small handful of staff.
Sorry. I'm sorry, time out. The door just swung open. I gotta close it. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well, while she does that, I'm going to say that that is a very small handful of our staff. I think it's just fresh. I'm going to talk about Gigi since she's not here. Um, I think that sometimes our administrative team just gets frustrated with the one or two people that are causing problems and forget about the great A players that we do have on our team, because the loudest ones or the ones that are, causing frustration and headaches are the ones that are getting more attention and taking up more of their time. So it kind of feels like everyone is doing X, Y, and Z, or everyone thinks this way, or no one is listening, and blah, blah, blah. And that's just not the case. And I have to continuously remind Gigi of that and remind our administrative team to not get down or think about the whole staff as to not think about the small handful of staff that are causing problems as everyone.
Sorry, the dog swung open, so the dog ran out. Anyways, you don't want to know.
You have a dog? There's a dog there?
Yeah, it's named Black. No, sorry, Night.
I was talking about you while you were gone. It's okay.
Of course, I'm used to it.
Yeah, but I was just explaining how much I have to reassure you guys that one or two staff members is not everyone.
Yeah. What do you? She always tells me, and I always remember it. But sometimes when you're in the midst of your feelings talking about staff, I do constantly use the word they, and your infamous word is, who are they, and why do you have them all under one umbrella? And it's true. It's not all of them. It's not all of them. I do like our staff. We do have one or two, but it's definitely not all of them. Definitely not. And I had to learn that consistently, that it's not. Stop pairing them together.
Yeah, so maybe we should get into the secret sound now. I feel like we are not going to, well, that's not true. As far as our disagreement in how the situation,
I think it's good that we're finally disagreeing on something, but still understand what is needed and why it's needed, and to implement it as such. Because I think with bosses everywhere who have an assistant or somebody under it, it can't always be yes, of course. It wouldn't be real. And it wouldn't be a teachable moment, because even though I disagree, it's still a teachable moment, because at the end of the day, still giving her what she wants does show some type of structure, and give her an explanation behind and letting her know the way she acted or what she said was not necessary. And the only reason this is happening is because we saw our mistake and fixed it and presented to you and let you know that we made a mistake, but also the way you handled it was not professional and really a tad bit disrespectful.
Right.
So it's a teachable moment.
Yeah, I think it's a teachable moment for everyone involved, including myself and you guys. It could have been so easy for me to just close the tab and not reopen it or say anything, but I was like, this makes sense.
And it took a lot to say you were wrong, I'm sure, especially behind the person we're talking about, who we know is so not prideful, but her character is so strong, and you've had back and forth with her for quite some time.
I wouldn't say I've had back and forth. I've just had a lack of response because she doesn't like talking to me about certain things, about anything that is like what conflict. She doesn't like bringing conflicts to me.
Yeah, and she's an amazing teacher. This person, don't get us wrong. She's an amazing person, been with us for years.
So let's get into the secret sound. I think that to put a little bow on this situation, even though you don't agree with me, even though you did not agree with me, and I do think that you're right in saying that basically you're trying to say we can't have yes men in administration. You know, if there is something that you guys disagree about, it is important to mention it, which is why I asked. You know, I asked you guys. My mind was made up, but I asked for your opinion to see if you were going to say something that changed my mind. And I didn't hear it other than like, no, just because, or just, you know, the lack of respect thing. Like, I had to make it clear that we do not take action in this company just out of emotion or frustration, or, you know, wanting to be respected. I guess we should want to be respected, and we should give and expect to receive respect back. But this is not, we shouldn't just do things to command respect. We're still recording, Gigi. Like, we're filming. People are going to see your face. I can start over and cut it out if you'd like, but the faces, they're going to be seen.
All my moms out there, you know, you've ever been in a position where you're trying to still talk and tell your kid to, you know, when those faces, go sit down. Yeah, I'm also one of those.
Well, let's get off this so that your face isn't shown anymore. For those of you that are listening or watching this video on YouTube, I would absolutely love to hear your perspective. Yes. So leave it in the comments below if what you think we should have done in this specific scenario. We are all on the same team in this company.
Yes, we're on the same team. But we, you know, like I said, it's good to not just say yes, yes, and agree, because that's my boss. I feel like Dani would want my honest opinion. And as we all know, I'm in a position to fulfill her policies and run her business as she see fit at the end of the day. But I appreciate her asking us our opinions and make us feel valid.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the audio listeners hearing the screams.
She's fine. She's just a kid. She's okay.
Yeah, so leave your comments down below and let us know what you think about this scenario, what you think we should have done, and how we should handle it the next time. I'm so curious. Also, go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you stream your podcast, search Childcare Sights and Sounds, click subscribe, and listen to this episode, listen to the rest of this episode in the Secret Sound, where we give you guys an extra few minutes for our audio only listeners. Be sure to like this video if you're watching on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at Childcare Sights. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Goodbye.